Okay, thanks for coming back to Shooting It Straight. For a long time now, I've been hearing that for some odd reason, the 1911 is not for beginners, or it's not for amateurs, implying, ostensibly at least, that the 1911 can only be handled and shot by experts or highly skilled, experienced shooters. Now, this claim is strictly a matter of one's personal opinion, and I can respect that. But I, for one, have a different opinion regarding this claim. I feel that a 1911 can be competently handled by anyone who is willing to learn the basic fundamentals involved in shooting any semi-auto handgun, and this includes newbies or beginners. I've read a lot of articles and watched a lot of videos over the years that make reference to the claim that 1911s are not for beginners, and so far, really, nobody has been able to put forth a common sense justification for this claim. Now, a few have put forth excuses to support this claim, but none have really given any valid, compelling, conclusive, or even persuasive arguments to support it. I've heard laughable excuses such as, well, the 1911 uses a single stack magazine holding only 7 or 8 rounds, so you'll need to reload sooner if you're in a gunfight. Well, if we're going to use that kind of logic, then a 5 or 6 shot revolver is not for beginners either, right? That's pure absurdity. So, out of all the different semi-auto handguns on the market today, why is the 1911 the only handgun that's somehow not for beginners? Exactly what makes the 1911 not for beginners anyway? What's so different about it that puts it in this unique category? Is it because it has an external thumb safety? Well, so do dozens of other semi-auto pistols as well. But those pistols mysteriously evade the label of not for beginners. Is it the grip safety? Again, a few other popular handguns also use that grip safety, or one like it, such as the Smith & Wesson Shield EZ and Springfield Armory's XD pistols. Yet for some reason, they seem to be just fine for the beginners. Is it because it's a big 45 caliber? Well, I think most grown people should be fully capable of handling a 1911 right out of the gate without the need to work or train their way up in caliber. Now, mind you, there's nothing at all wrong with starting out with a smaller caliber when learning basic marksmanship, but it's not a necessary progression for everybody. The standard 45 ACP load is not exactly a powerhouse anyway, and the weight of most standard 1911s will absorb a lot of that recoil, so it's very shootable. Now, a few have said that 1911s are picky or finicky with regard to magazines and ammo, and because of that, some beginners will not want to waste time experimenting with different ammo and magazines to find out which ones are and are not compatible with their 1911. Well, I think that's true. Some 1911s are finicky with regard to ammo and magazines, but certainly not all. And to be fair, many other semi-autos are auto and magazine, or ammo and magazine sensitive as well. But some 1911s do seem to be particularly acceptable or susceptible to this. Now, trying out a few different combinations to find the best fit for your 1911 might prove useful. I've used 4 different quality magazines and shot all types of quality ammo through mine. And so far, I haven't found a magazine or ammo brand that will not function properly in this particular 1911. Now, of course, I haven't tried them all yet. But now, could the claim primarily concern the trigger? Now 1911s are known for fairly light trigger pulls straight from the factory and with very little take up. Now this is not a pivoting trigger like most of the other firearms. It is a slide trigger. Also, most other single action semi-autos and striker fired pistols come straight from the box with about 4.5 to maybe a 6-pound trigger pull. Not all, but most. In my own personal experiences, it appears that most 1911 trigger pull weights are maybe 1 to 1.5 pounds lighter than most other standard single action or striker fired pistols on the market. Now the difference in trigger pull weight itself is not necessarily the standalone issue here, but when you couple that with the lack of trigger take up to get to the wall, and then you have that short reset after you fire it, it can be enough to throw you off and possibly cause double fires. You may intentionally fire one shot, but like I said, that take up is so short and the reset is even shorter that it's very likely you'll bump the trigger a second time accidentally and get that double fire. So this trigger is something you must get used to and then control it through practice. Now here's how I did it many years ago. Simply, when you fire it, simply break trigger contact between your shots, meaning you take your finger off of the trigger face after each shot. Now after a short period of proper practice like this, you'll eventually be able to keep that finger in contact with the trigger face during subsequent shots without any issues, because by that time you will be much more familiar, dare I say intimate, with your trigger. Now the bottom line is this: things such as using the external thumb safety, getting a proper grip to disengage that grip safety, performing your mag reloads competently, proper trigger control, and so forth, eventually all comes down to practice. Now this is true with any firearm that you may one day use, and the 1911 is no exception. Whether it's a revolver or a semi-auto, a 1911 or a Glock, and regardless of the caliber, practice is going to be necessary in order for you to become both familiar with that pistol, all right, so that you can become what? Proficient with it, regardless of your experience level. All right, here's my case in chief to counter this old claim that they're not for beginners, all right? The first semi-auto handgun I ever shot was a Colt Gold Cup 1911 back in the mid-1970s when I was about 13 years old. Now, I received maybe 20 minutes of handling and shooting instructions, how to line up the sights, how to pull the trigger, how to hold the gun, so forth, from a highly qualified relative before spending the next hour shooting a 10 by 10 paper bullseye target under his supervision, and that target was tacked to a tree, and I managed to shoot just fine, no problems at all. Now my shots weren't perfect, but most were on that target. I never received any formal training, any formal firearms training, until I was at the police academy in the mid-1980s, and by that time I'd already been shooting in CPSL matches for a year with an old Colt 1911. And I also think it's important to remember that the 1911 was issued to millions of young U.S. soldiers for more than 75 years, and a very large percentage of those soldiers had never fired a handgun before. So yes, a beginner can in fact handle a 1911 and shoot accurately with minimal training and some range time. So, you know, as far as the blanket claim that 1911s are not for amateurs or beginners is concerned, I feel pretty comfortable in saying that while this may be true for a few people, I don't believe it's true for the vast majority. I don't think you can paint that with a broad brush, all right? I believe that the 1911 is for anybody that is willing to learn and practice. You don't need years of prior shooting experience, nor do you need to attend any professional shooting schools just to competently shoot a 1911, whether it's for simple target shooting or defensive carry. Now, I will say this. If you have the opportunity to actually attend a certified shooting school, I certainly do encourage you to do that. I'm only saying that it's not at all a requirement to attend such a class or school before handling a 1911. There are other ways to learn it, but you must learn it. Now, to be sure, a standard 1911 may not be the ideal concealed carry option for many folks because of its size and weight. But being an amateur or a novice to firearms should not be the determining factor in that decision. If you can become proficient enough to carry a Glock 19 or a Smith & Wesson Shield, then you can just as easily become proficient enough to carry a 1911. There's no big secrets, no magic tricks about shooting a 1911. Nobody needs to be knighted by a king before owning a 1911. So what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to make the iconic 1911 your first semi-auto handgun if that's what you want to do. Just be sure to get proper instructions from somebody that knows how to operate it and knows what they're doing. That's very important. And then be sure to practice regularly. This is the same that you should do with any other handgun. That's it. It's just that simple. Anyways, this video today represents just my personal opinion regarding the claim that 1911s are somehow not for beginners. I hope you found it helpful to you in some way. Thanks for watching. I'm Antonius, and I'll see you next time right here on Shooting It Straight. Until then, ciao.